Welcome to Streams of Income, hosted by best-selling author and entrepreneur Dr. David Powers, where we discuss streams of income, passive income, residual income, and even why there are dinosaurs and zombies in this intro. Fasten your seatbelts and get ready to dive in.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Streams of Income podcast. We are here with Robertt Sanchez, a good friend of mine from another mastermind group that I'm in, and a lot of things we have in common too. I've been really enjoying your Facebook posts and everything, man, about something I hate, which is running. But I do want to hear about that. Maybe you'll turn me over to the dark side. But Robertt, thanks for being with me. And we had a pretty good talk before we hit the record button. So I want to capture some of that energy and just let you bust loose, man. So, since I brought it up, running, you've been hitting hard and heavy with the running. Tell us about that.
Well, I think in order to talk about that, I have to talk about the organization that I'm a part of called F3. Are you familiar with it?
I have heard of it, never been to any of the things.
So it stands for Fitness Fellowship Faith, and it's an early morning workout group for men. We've got 5 core principles: a free of charge, open all men, held outside, rain or shine, hot or cold. So it was 0 degrees this morning. It's one of the best parts is peer led in a rotating fashion. So you elevate and lead, and then you go right back down into the ranks. So imagine like a general, somebody gets promoted to general in an army, and they serve that for a year, and then they go back to being a lieutenant, and somebody else becomes a general. Very, very. I've never seen that anywhere in any hierarchical organization where that's a good thing. And here it is. And then it ends in a circle of trust, which usually is some sort of motivational or parting words, and then an optional prayer, which in our circles is optional, but everybody does it. And so I've always lived on affirmation. Like that's been a driver for a lot of things, and it took me a while to realize that. But when you can get into a situation where you're doing hard stuff with other men, which is something we all need as men. We all need to do hard stuff with other men. And you try and you get encouragement, and you start seeing people that are your peers, but it's like, this dude's like 56 and he's fitter than I was when I was 22, stuff like that. Yeah. And then oddly enough, I kind of, my shoulder was acting up because I was doing too much with that. I wasn't doing, we have run clubs. We have boot camps where we lift cinder blocks and throw those around. And then we have what's called ruck clubs. So for those of you in the military, it's basically
that would be for
weighted. And you know what? That's how I started, and I still do it, and I love it. Spent way too much money on the rucksack, but I started running just because it was not hurting my shoulder. And then we had this thing called reindeer games. It was effectively a way to just get guys to keep coming out when it start getting cold. And they put us into teams, and you can do 3 miles a day of running, rucking, or 9 miles of biking and get points. And so you get points for everything. And I was, not only was I doing it, but I was a captain of one of the teams. They asked me to be a captain. So I had to lead by example. So I put in all of a sudden I'm running like all these miles, and it's tough, and I'm running slow. And then some guy says to me, hey, this weekend I'm going to go do a half marathon on Sunday or 2 weeks from then. And we get extra points if we do that. And I'm like, that's not for me. And then this other guy in my team goes, well, how do you know? Have you ever tried? Well, no, I haven't. So then how do you know you can't do a half marathon? So 2 weeks later, I did a half marathon, and nice. I actually kind of loved it secretly, not so secretly. Well, it's this whole concept of, I'm running there, and the weather was still decent. It's mid-November. We had, a bit of a nice fall, and you're running, and you got like nobody's going to mess with you for the next couple hours. And, and we have like kind of rural suburban on the edge of town, running in that area. And it's just like, dude, this is, I get why people like this. I get why people like this. And then you get to the end, and you get that endorphin rush of like, you actually did something. And there's this feeling of brotherhood with the dudes that I did it with, some of whom were, at my level or behind my level, and some of whom were well advanced and yet still took the time to do it with me and guide me. And so it became very, very affirming. And then it became very logical. Like, yeah, the shoes are expensive. You can get addicted to races and pay for all those and stuff. But it's probably one of the most basic things that we as people can do. And if you think of all of the health benefits to running, um, and there are negatives too, but a lot of those negatives have to do with your pace or bad equipment or that sort of thing. Anybody can run of any size, just need to slow down or
Yeah.
do more intervals or whatever it is. But it's the most basic thing we do, and it does so much for you, for your brain. It does so much for you. My cat is knocking over my light here. It does so much for you for so many things, and and why not? And and it actually started to dominate my thoughts so much that it's going to sound strange. I've been doing Taekwondo for 7-8 years and started to lose interest in that,
Oh, wow.
which is crazy because a year ago that would have been number one in my life.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, I can get the same kind of thing from working out with the guys and running. Why do I need to spend all this money per month to do martial arts? And martial arts really, it's hard in that it takes time, but inside a moment, a 20-minute, 30-minute, hour-long session, it's not hard like trying to run 5 miles in an hour is hard, or
Yeah.
trying to run a mile in less than 10 minutes can be hard, or that sort of thing. So um and it's something that's, barring injury, it's something that's always there. And if you get injured running, you've done something wrong. That's kind of my opinion.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at now. I'm on week 2 of a recovery, 3-week recovery from a 5-mile race that I did. And I say race because it's timed and it's official, but I'm not looking to race other people. I'm
Yeah.
going to race the clock and race my goals and that sort of thing. And the beautiful thing about it is, you can set a few benchmarks. I got a 10K in May. I got a half marathon in October. There's probably a few 5Ks in there. And so fitness goals align with that, nutrition goals align with that. Um, it forces you to plan certain things. You have to start thinking about, that the impact of decisions you make for your health. So there's just so many things if you're doing a structured program with it, which I am. There's so many things that benefit from running. It's like, why
Yeah.
didn't I do this when I was 25? And I haven't answered that, but that's a question for later. I can tell you why it's good that I didn't. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
that's kind of where it's at.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been enjoying the posts and the progress you've been making, but not just the progress, but your posts come across as how much fun you're having doing something that doesn't always feel good, and that's what I like about it.
Oh yeah. Well, it it sucks about 80% of the time and it's awesome about 20% of the time. And how much in our lives kind of follows that same pattern, but we have to do the 80 to get the 20, or maybe
Yeah,
even 90-10, depending on what it is. And it's too easy to just take take 40% awesome in life total, that's going to lead you nowhere, rather than take 80% suck, 20% awesome, but that 20% is going to lead you to heaven on earth, as a friend of mine likes to say. So
oh yeah, yeah, it's good. So you are near Chicago, and I got to be honest, I've driven by Chicago on my way up to Wisconsin. The only thing, like most
that's the
people,
best use for Chicago, on the way to Wisconsin right there.
the most I know about Chicago is from TV shows like Shameless and all the Chicago Fire and all those shows. And looking from the outside, Chicago is nothing but criminals and mafia and stuff like that. So tell me what it's like actually being a real live person in Chicago.
Well, the criminals and mafia will leave you alone. You just end up, paying a higher tax rate than just about any other place. But, we elect our criminals here. So no, you know what? Here's the thing about Chicago. It is probably, and I've lived in suburban New York City. It's where I grew up. And then I spent, 10 years in Arizona. I lived in Tucson. I lived in Vegas for 2 years. So I got real familiar with all the West Coast cities. And
Mhm.
then since living here in Chicago, I've spent time in a lot of the Midwest places. Chicago is in my opinion by far one of the most unique, in a good way, unique cities in this country because like most big cities, it's a convergence of culture. But unlike like a New York, for example, um, that convergence has created um, more of a hybrid in terms of the way that people interact with each other. Whereas it's New York, it's like they want you to become a New Yorker. But
Yep.
what it means to be a Chicagoan, it used to kind of be like pretty out, like da Bears, you hear that kind of stuff. Um, but really, there's not necessarily, in my opinion, at this point, because people have moved around. There's no South Side, North Side division like there used to be. There isn't a one homogenous culture of people, which is good. So you can find any kind of food you want. You can find any kind of, you know, faith you want. You can find any kind of entertainment you want. But the other thing is just the geography of it. You're near a lake, so there's great recreation, and it's a freshwater lake, so we got plenty of water, so that's not an issue either. You can go up north to Wisconsin and do wintry things. You can go south into the plains and do, country-esque things. You can drive east and do that. You can drive west and do that, or you can fly any of these places. And from about middle May to maybe early October, you cannot beat the weather here.
Yeah.
You really, because it doesn't get oppressive very often. I mean, it's not like San Diego, but I mean, our taxes aren't that high yet.
Yeah.
And I can afford to own a house here. I couldn't out there. Um, a lot of people, I think, when they retire here, will make a residence in a warm weather climate, but still come up here for the summers. And I completely understand that, and I would
Yeah.
definitely consider doing the same thing down the line, because you really have, especially when the weather's nice, you really have everything here that you would want. Now that doesn't stop you from wondering, but the grass isn't always greener, and for all the problems that you hear about on the news, and they're there, but they were in Tucson when I lived there. They were
Yeah.
in New York when I lived there. Don't let them fool you. They're everywhere. People tout about Florida. I want to move to Florida. This Florida property taxes are insane in Florida, compared to the value of the home, and insurance is insane. So
Yeah.
I'd be paid half what I make now. So yeah, I'd love to live in Ron DeSantis's freedom fort that he's got down there, but it wouldn't be a whole lot of fun if I was paying Florida property taxes, paying Florida insurance rates, and making a Florida salary. So
Yeah.
it's all a trade off. So I'd rather just do it where I am, and then have the freedom to do what I want with it.
Yeah. No, that's a great answer. I mean, I find that when I ask questions about people about places I don't know about, pretty much everything on TV is just a stereotype of whatever moves the drama.
Well, there's a reason for stereotypes, because if there's a stereotype, and I know this could get me in trouble, but whether it be a cultural one or a one related to location, um, nobody made that up out of thin air. Like, they
Yeah.
got it from someplace. What makes it wrong is to say that everybody or every place or every represents that. But all the things you hear about Chicago, and the area, they are true to a point. It's just, it's just the same like California. But I'm going to California in a couple of weeks. I'm going to have a great time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to like paying the 17% per night room surcharge. But I'll get over it and I'll move on from it, just like anything
Yeah.
else. And it's true, but it's also, there's good things you oftentimes miss, and good doesn't always get clicks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. So you've got a full-time job that I mean, I know you've got other streams of income. So go ahead and tell the listeners, what do you do for a full-time living?
So I am a professional educator. I've been a high school band director for 19 years, and this year I decided to, I don't know why, but I decided to move down to elementary. I
Ah,
do know why. It's less hours outside of the school day, but different set of challenges, and I have some unique perspectives on that's given me. But the bottom line is I'm a teacher. I've always been a teacher, and that's another thing about Illinois. We are, in my opinion, paid fairly here
Yeah.
in this area. And you'll find that in a lot of suburbs. And some people will say it's the unions and all of that. There's some truth to that, um, but that is the full time job. Now, in terms of other streams of income, um, there are streams, but nothing's flowing in them yet. So that's where you come in, Dr. David
Yeah,
Powers.
you're digging the springs.
Yeah, I got the troughs, all set up and ready for the water to flow or for the coinage to flow. But that's really the thing about being an educator is that it is and I know there are plenty of other professions that can relate to this if you work in healthcare, or anything like that in particular, where you are mentally drained. I'd rather be physically drained.
Yeah.
I know that construction is hard, but you can probably leave that when you leave the job site.
Put the tools down and go home.
Repetitive work, or even if it's really thought, work that you need a lot of thought capital for, it's not draining. So it becomes hard to do side hustles and things like that because you're so drained. And, it's also teaching in particular is a profession dominated by females, and that's not a bad thing. That's the females are more naturally nurturing, and that's what we need from our teachers. But there is a slightly more emotional mindset that comes from having that demographic as your dominant force, and so it's easy to get wrapped up in the emotions of doing the job, and sometimes that's necessary, and sometimes it's draining. But developing those extra streams is, you'll find all teachers want it, but very few actually are able to do it sustainably and successfully. And if they are, sometimes they'll hit the fast forward button and try to use it to get themselves out of teaching.
Yeah. Okay. Now, at one time you were doing music for martial arts. Is that still something that you're doing?
So what I discovered about that is that the niches of that are very, very narrow, almost to the point where you would have to charge a lot of money for certain types of services, or you'd be pay for play kind of stuff. So like I was doing music tracks for people, but the amount of money that I would have had to charge to do that and make it worth my time was a lot more than basically a lot of the stuff I was doing could be a great side hustle for a 20-year-old, and that's what it was for some of the people doing it. Really the way to make money in martial arts is to have a school and then get multiple streams of income within the school. You have a summer camp, you have different programs, adult programs, different types of martial art. That's how it's done in martial arts. And opening a brick and mortar business of any kind is never really something I've been interested in doing.
Yeah.
And I learned that's where it was going to go. And the way that the side hustle was going, it wasn't something that I wanted to develop, because I didn't see an end that would have been with where my goals are in terms of my family and myself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. With martial arts, I mean, I've been involved with martial arts for a long time, and it seems like you almost have to go certain routes, like the little kid daycare after school programs route, or you work a full-time job and you've just got this little storefront where a bunch of old guys hang out at night and fight and stuff, and it's not really a moneymaker. It's just a place for people to show up. And
there are some people that I know that are able to do that deal full-time job in the martial arts studios part-time. But in this day and age, they're either retired, like police, military, that kind of thing, or they are, work from home, remote, work in tech, work in IT.
Yeah.
And, my experience talking to people in jobs like that is that you are working a lot of hours, but it is not the same sort of brain drain that that working in a classroom is. It's not managed time like teaching is. Teaching's all managed time. We have to get somebody to cover us to go pee sometimes. But to own a martial arts studio as a full-time gig, obviously, like you said, you've got to have those extra streams. To do it as part-time is fine too, but it's also the kind of thing that makes money when times are good.
Oh yeah.
And when times are less than good, it's very much a disposable income thing.
Yeah.
Nobody, I do think everybody needs martial arts, especially men, but I don't think anybody needs that martial arts or your martial arts or their there's always resources. If you want to learn how to box, you can do that cheaply.
Yeah.
or whatever. But
Yep.
and that's, so it becomes a financial drain too, for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. So, with other streams of income, but what are you thinking? I mean, what troughs are you kind of working on there?
So, well, obviously we met, and I didn't remember this because we seem to have so much in common that I thought I had met you someplace else. Just watching your posts, and you got some young children and all that. So you got a little girl. How old's your daughter?
Yeah, she's 11. Yep.
She's 11. So my son is 11. My daughter's just turned 8, I think. 7. I
Okay.
don't know. I want her to be 7, but I think she's 8. Um, and so we met through the membership freedom stuff,
Yeah. Yep.
obviously. So, I think one of the things that I really like about that is the concept of the stadium, and
Yeah.
having one product or one type of product that then has a lot of different access points. And so, I think for me, especially having my experiences with F3 and the men's workout group, and just looking around in society, there is a hole right now, with middle-aged men, and
Yeah.
if you and I believe that a lot of the problems in our society is because of men, but not because men were, chauvinistic or anything. No, I think it's because men got weak because society told them that they needed to be more feminine, and they told them that women needed to be more empowered, and they do, but it's a balance. And so men took a step back in general, and now you've got a lot of guys between 30 and 50 years old, and I'm right in the middle of that. I'm 42, who just have weakness about them.
Yep.
They're not in good marriages, they're not in good careers, they're overweight, they don't know how to fight, they don't know all those things that you hear. And there's been a lot of people that have come into the space. They call it the red pill space. um, but they talk about how much women suck. And listen, we as guys can always say that at times women do suck, but you know what? They can say the same thing about us, and we're both right.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
approaching it from that angle, is not going to get you there. Obviously, there's a lot of people that focus on helping men rebuild after divorce, and it's like, well, that's great, but do I have to be divorced to rebuild?
Yeah.
Let me get right on that. I don't think my wife's gonna appreciate that, though. Um, so so you got that, and then there's a lot that's catering to, like, the David Goggins and those type, catering to the younger men in their 20s, and that's great because
Yep.
it's going to set them up to be better when they're 30 and 40. But I think a lot of guys around 40 right now just feel stuck, and I have and do feel that way a lot. And so what I want to do is I want to help those guys dig out of that some, and the way that I can do that is through, you know, developing resilience, and
Yeah.
leadership development, because that's something that I've done at the, developing with the high school band kids, and also just being intelligent and well read, and being able to speak on a lot of different topics, and blend those all into something that's useful. So I want to help middle-aged men move to the next phase in their life, and do so strongly. And listen, I want to help myself in doing this. I'm just gonna be one step ahead of these guys. I'm not the
Yeah.
one with
Yeah.
the answers, but I do feel like sometimes I might have one more answer than you, and I want you to pay me a little bit of money so that I can give you that answer, and then we can both accelerate together.
Yeah.
Um, and that's kind of where I'm going. And so really, um, finding ways to make that my mission, and then seeing if I can support myself and my family with that mission, is kind of
Yeah.
what I want to do, because I don't want to alienate one group, i.e. the women. No, we
Hmm.
need the women with us. We need them at our side. We need them pushing us up. We can't
Yeah.
alienate them. We can't say, oh, the problems in the world are because you suck. No, I don't want to alienate them, and I don't want to have a prerequisite like, you got to be divorced before I can
Yeah.
help you, or you got to be in a shitty marriage. No, what if my marriage is pretty good? What will the effect of me making personal change on a marriage be? It's something to consider.
Yeah.
So, um,
I found with the women too, the with some of the things I do, the with the men being in a more weakened state, a lot of times with stuff I do, the women are the wives are the ones that get them into the things. Like they'll send them the links, or they'll say, "Hey, maybe you should try this. Maybe you'll like this."
well, and I think that when you look at a lot of the complaints that women have in our society, you know, especially things that lead to divorces or just some of that, um, women are having to act more like men in terms of like being more aggressive and being more disagreeable. And Jordan Peterson talks a lot about this as well. But women want, I think, deep down want to be women, and I'll give you a good example of that. You know, I talked about earlier how my wife and I both grew up kind of expecting that we were going to both do the 9 to 5, kids in
Hmm.
daycare or school, retire at 65, whatever. And I never thought anything different. And she's in the medical field, and I'm in education. But once you have kids, suddenly I have this drive where I want to provide more, and she has this drive where she wants to be home more
Yeah.
with the kids. But we were not in a position where we could honestly do that because we didn't make the decision to go that route when we were younger, because it never occurred to us, because our parents both, you know, all did that stuff.
Yeah.
And so what that boils down to is she wanted to do some of the more traditional stuff, and so did I. But we had to compromise that within ourselves. Now, truthfully, and this is where maybe a lot of men might get pissed off. I think it's actually easier for men to find themselves in through all this than it is for women, because the society is giving a lot more mixed messages to women, and they are hearing it a lot more. I think men, it's easy for us to shut things out and just laser focus on one thing, because
Yeah.
that's how our brains work. Um, so I think that's another part of the equation too. Um, but you know, when one of the reasons I joined F3 was I was actually looking for an early morning workout situation for my wife, and she had been with one thing, and they moved real far away, and you know, flash forward later, she's just driving more in the morning, and we sometimes fight about whose day it is to go out and work out in the morning. But in online doing this, and I started messaging with this guy, and his response, well, why don't we take care of the leader of the household first?
Oh.
And I said, now you speak in my language. And
That was the sales pitch there.
well, it was it was a mindset that I had within me,
Yep.
and it's not that my wife doesn't want a leader, isn't capable of it, but she would rather, and I think this is what it boils down to. Um, you hear people use the word submission, and that sounds like a bad word. Why is it a bad word? Because we relate it to sexual, you know, deviancy. To be submissive in a sexual situation is like a fetish that some people have, right?
Yeah.
But what it really means is follow the mission, submit to the mission, support the mission. That's submission, support
Yeah.
the mission. So I think my wife and I would like to just agree on a mission, and I point the compass and she drives the engine. And I think that's how that relationship should be. And but so many people are lost in that. And if I can figure something out and then pass that along, and other people get better, I mean at the end of our workouts, we'll sit in that circle, and some days there'll be 30 or 40 of us, and we're all praying an Our Father or something. Like, I mean, how powerful is that? You
Yeah.
know, a bunch of men that just did hard shit together, and most of these guys have kids, and they're married, and they're trying to go home and do right for their families. And you know, we have a term, we call it M. When we refer to our wives, we call them our M's, and that stands for most important. And it doesn't have to be our wife that's the most important, but if you're married and it's not your wife, that's probably a problem.
Yeah.
So um and so it's finding, men need group of men to be role models for each other, to lead each other, to help each other, and then we take it home, and we do that. And the organization I'm a part of is not even a nonprofit. They're just it's like something that just sort of happens around the
Yeah.
country. um but there
Okay.
is,
So other people in other places, this is like a national thing.
yeah. So I'll give them the plug. If you go to f3nation.com, it is a national thing, but they
Okay.
are they are completely independent. There are nonprofits associated with most of the local groups,
Yeah.
because it's a way to, the mission is to plant, grow, and serve small workout groups for men. Here's the key: for the invigoration of male community leadership.
Oh, that sounds good.
It does really sound, it's the perfect wording for it, but it makes sense, and there's a lot of different ways to do that. Um, and but the point is that, well, the nuts and bolts reason why is that we don't want to get sued. So if we're some sort of corporation or non-corporate, some dude comes out for the first time, breaks his leg trying to throw a cinder
Yeah.
block around, there's nobody for him to sue. We have to say, at 5:15 this morning, I'm like, Plainfield Park District is not responsible for you. I am not a professional. That's like the first thing we say.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I mean, it's a good thing. So I'm not looking to monetize that, but I think that part of it fits a need, and I think that it's not available in a lot of places. And so
Yeah.
certainly, secretly, I'd love to help throw it in a lot of different places. Um, but I know for me, one of the biggest things that's helped me through all that is just hearing different types of affirmation and different types of words, and step by step processes and things like that. And so if I can help guys do those sorts of things,
Yeah.
our world's going to get better, because what's the saying? Strong men lead, weak men lead to bad times,
Oh
bad
yeah.
times lead to strong men lead to good times. Well,
Yep.
they say that's a vicious cycle, but what if it's not? What if we can somehow get to good times and keep strong men? What would happen
Oh
then?
man.
Have we ever found
Yeah.
that out in the history of our world? I mean, I don't think so. What if I can
Yeah.
be a part of making that happen? What if you can be a part of making that happen?
Oh yeah. Yep. Man, that would be amazing. So before I forget, you started a podcast to talk about all this. How can people find you find the podcast?
Yep. So it's called The Balance Blade,
Balance
and
Blade.
right now I'm on YouTube, so you get to see my beautiful face. And the concept behind that is balanced life, resiliency, strength, and the idea of the blade is one of the main things I did in martial arts was Korean longsword.
Ah,
So I kind of like that, but there's so many different things that have come from that just in there. I start the podcast by, we are forged in the blade and we lead with edge, those, and then at the end
yeah.
I say stay sharp. It just kind of flows. I will be honest, in full disclosure, Chat GPT has been a great tool for helping me organize things, helping me come up with some, not the ideas, but some of the background information, or some of the
Yeah.
links that go. But just simply go to YouTube, type in The Balance Blade, and it'll come up. And I'm sure you can link it in whatever
Oh yeah. I'll
socials,
throw it in the show notes.
yeah,
And
whatever
I'll throw
social
a
you have
link
here.
into your merch shop also.
Yep. That's kind of unrelated but kind of connected. It's Sharpened Threads. That's the name that I kind of came up with. And there's just two things on there right now. There's a shirt that says hashtag Stay Sharp, um, and that was because it was simple. But the one that I've got is a running one, and it says freedom in every mile, and it kind of looks like the shirts that people wear that just say freedom on them with like
Yeah.
a flag. This kind of has that same silhouette font type deal, but freedom in every mile. Because when I was running that half marathon, I looked around. And I'm like, this is freedom. This
Yeah.
is freedom, and that was kind of the vibe. But
I like it.
I'm throwing a lot of different things out there with this podcast, and it'll probably get honed in at one point. I've got, my first video was on the opposition. Then I had something about running. I've got a couple coming up here. One's about youth sports, which I know we as men talk about, and the pros and cons of travel versus in-house and stuff like that. I've
Yeah.
got I got a faith-based one coming up. That one's actually just posted, and that one's interesting because there's a gentleman with Down syndrome that I grew up knowing, and the dude was just like the most authentic
Yeah.
Christian guy that you've ever known. And I've got some reaction videos coming too. They'll call those Blade Reacts, so that's kind of fun.
Ah,
And the one that I've got coming out is I react to the Super Bowl commercial from Google Pixel called Dream Job, where this
oh,
guy is interviewing for a job. He's talking about his past job. What he's really talking about is being a dad, and the fact that a major corporation decided to uplift dads like that is really promising to me, because that hasn't been a trend that we've seen.
yeah.
So, all these things are coming in, and what people engage with the most is what I will focus on, really.
Okay. No, it sounds good. I mean, just experiment a little bit and see what the community drives it towards.
One thing about that, and this is maybe something for people that are interested in creating content. One of my goals for this was to create a process that would allow me to do it all on my phone,
Yeah.
from filming to editing. I do use my laptop for some of it out of convenience at times, but I can do it all on my phone 100%, which is good because I can spend 5 minutes here or there, editing something or
Yeah.
doing that kind of thing. So I've actually put together kind of a guide for how I'm doing that, and I'll probably use that as a lead magnet down the line.
Oh man. See, now you got me thinking streams of income again.
Yeah. Well, and what drew me to your specifically to the streams of income thing is my wife and I talk a lot about this. This will be a good way to sort of put a bow on a lot of this, because what are we really doing as men? We're trying to leave a legacy, right? We're trying to have
Hmm.
our children be better than us.
Yeah.
There's a famous the story of Elijah in the Bible, and there's a Felix Mendelssohn, a great composer, wrote an aria called "It Is Enough," and he's singing about how he's not better than his father, and he wants to die because of
Mm.
that. So what do we as fathers want? We want our children to be better than us, and my wife and I are talking about what we want for our kids,
Yeah.
and I swear it, and it's crazy because she's never been one to think this way. She says, I want our kids to have multiple streams of income. I want them to have multiple streams of income. And it was the
Yeah.
first time that she ever thought that way, because I've had to really convince her that college is not necessarily the answer, even
Yeah.
though it may be. But I don't want that to be the obvious thing. And she said that, and then I got to thinking about my daughter in particular, because as girl dads, we say that we want certain things and we want women to be a certain way, but then we have to look at our daughters and say, do we want that for them? And what I want for my daughter is for her to be able to develop in her youth multiple streams of income, to offer her the freedom to either put those aside or have others run them while she plays, wife and mom. And
Yeah.
then she finds the right guy. The right guy is going to create a situation, a good synergy between the two of them, where she's going to be able to continue to develop those things, be a business owner, be an entrepreneur, but also have the freedom that I know my wife would want for herself and for us,
Yeah.
to volunteer at her kids' school, to sew costumes for our son's play. And don't get me wrong, she's doing all that, which is part of why she's amazing, because she's doing all that and working full time. But I
Yeah.
know that she knows she could do it a lot better and a lot more if she had made some of those decisions. So
Oh yeah.
that's if you want to think about your why, somebody said if you're not cry if you don't cry when you think about your why, then your why needs to die and you need to retry. I should write that down.
That sounds like a sermon there,
If
man.
you don't cry when you think about your why, then your why needs to die and you got to hit retry. Um, yeah, and thinking about what I want for my daughter, I think really makes it, because I know if that can be her life, then it means that I've succeeded. It means that my wife has succeeded. It means, most likely my son has succeeded.
Yeah.
And hopefully I've helped build something up that'll be here when I'm gone. And hopefully that thing is being cultivated by other people and they're benefiting from it. And there's the legacy.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, I mean, it's all about margin. Just giving them margin for freedom, for choices to enjoy sewing the costume at night instead of having to worry about staying up late and then getting up early for work. I mean, just having more freedom to enjoy that kind of stuff.
That's an interesting way of put it. I never thought about it quite as a margin, but yeah, there's a lot less time for sure. And she's
Yeah.
doing the costumes for his play that's in May, and I know that first week of May is going to be pretty rough.
Oh. Yep. So hey, as we close this thing out, I always like to ask, if you could name three resources, whether it's books or people to follow, something like that, that you recommend. I mean, it could be for the manliness stuff or just for life in general as a dad, but just three resources. What would you say?
So the first one is a podcast that I really love listening to, and it's by a gentleman named Patrick Bet David, the PBD podcast, and you can find it if you type in Valuetainment. So the word value and then the second half of the word entertainment. And the reason why I like him is he has this business mindset. He's actually an Iranian immigrant, or he's a Syrian, but he was born in Iran, and he just has a voice that's really easy to listen to. And he became kind of well known for his interviews with George W. Bush, and then
No.
more notably Kobe Bryant. And when you hear
Yeah.
Kobe Bryant quotes and interviews, like in different motivational stuff, it's that interview with Patrick Bet David. But he's also, an entrepreneur, consultant. He's done or is doing a lot of the things, and he makes time for his kids and his
Yeah.
wife, and his wife is on his team, and they work together. And he's just living a lot of the things that we want. So you can get him in podcast, and he talks politics, and I agree with a lot of his politics. Um, the second one is um, Tim Grover. He wrote the book Relentless, and I would recommend that people read that book, or you can listen to it. But where you're going to know that name from is he was Michael Jordan's trainer.
Okay. Wow.
He was the guy. He was actually the guy that really started the idea of these athletes having these trainers, and he talks about the idea of uh, of closers and cleaners. And a closer is somebody who can come through under pressure, but a cleaner is somebody that you know is going to do it and is going to take over the game and make everyone around them better, kind of like Michael Jordan, but also acknowledges that comes with a price, and that people like that are never satisfied, that they never
Yeah.
settle. Look at Tiger Woods is a cleaner, but how's his personal life? And it's almost like a warning. It's like, you can be this if you want, but here's the price. But maybe you can find it. So it's a great book. So the PBD podcast, the book Relentless, um, and I want to give, this is a website, because I think everybody ought to have faith in their lives, and of course, um, I believe that there is only one true faith, and that is through our Lord Jesus Christ. And I'm not saying that to sound cliche. It's just what I believe, and if you believe something
Yeah.
else, you're wrong. But you're entitled to be wrong. It's okay. But a friend of mine, and I'm actually engaged with this right now on Sunday mornings, but a friend of mine's brother has a website called pursuegod.org. And there's a lot of different sort of step-by-step ways to engage with faith, because I think it's so hard for most people to just pick up and start reading the Bible. It's it's
Yeah.
it's tedious, and depending on what version you're reading, it can be hard to read or hard to understand. You need somebody to distill it for you. But a lot of times those people that are doing that are they lack authenticity. I used to
Yep.
go into the Christian church and see people doing this. I'm like, what the hell are they doing? Go read First Matthew, and what does he say in there? And what is it, chapter 6? He's, if you pray in the public square, you've gotten your reward. Pray in private, but this is a good way to engage with faith. And there's several series, and the one I'm doing right now is called The Pursuit. And there's a podcast, a YouTube video, and a short reading, about 10 minutes worth of reading for each one. I think those three things. So we've got your mindset taken care of. We've got your soul taken care of, and we got your material taken care of with those three things.
Yeah.
So
No, this is good because all three of these apply across the board. I mean, whether a dad, mom, entrepreneur, not entrepreneur, I mean, just these would help you no matter where you're at in life.
well, and that's just it. And how many of these women that are out there getting burned out and getting divorced are because they're cleaners, because they've had to be,
Mm.
because they got weak men around them, right? So
Yep.
they got to step up and be the cleaner, and that's the price, right? Sometimes you push those people away, or how many got Patrick Bet David. I'm reading a book right now called The Next Five Moves,
Yeah.
and I've been playing chess, and I suck at chess, and then I just started thinking, okay, I don't need to think 10 moves ahead. I just need to think. I start by thinking one move ahead, and then two, and then just the next five moves, and suddenly I start winning chess games by thinking like that. And you just start finding ways to cross over things in your life. Lessons you learn in one space apply to another.
Yeah. No, it's good stuff. Good stuff. Robert, thanks for being with us, man. This is pretty good. I enjoyed our conversation before too. I mean, digging into some stuff that not everybody needs to hear, but it's good to talk to other guys and just kind of talk about things you can't necessarily talk about at the store or the coffee shop and stuff like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, proud to do it, and it's again, it's kind of funny that we ended up. like I said, I just thought you were some dude I met somewhere, or a friend of a friend from F3, or friend of a friend with martial arts, because there's people all over the country I've met
Yeah.
with that. And I thought maybe you were from the membership group, but I wasn't 100% sure on that. So
Yeah, I'm gonna check real quick, see who our mutual friends are, because I mean we might have kind of met through some mutual friends and stuff, because of some of the groups I'm in. No, it looks like just the membership freedom group.
let's see.
Yeah, I've got a lot of friends just from conferences and stuff that end up being friends of friends, and finally I meet them in person or something, and then it clicks, you know.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think that's where it is. But you never know. You never know. Yeah, I mean Vincent Puglisi, for example, our guy that we work with in a membership, he's Facebook friends with Frank Schwartz, who is the
Yeah.
founder of F3.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I mean it's kind of, and he didn't know that about Frank. He met him
Yeah.
through some other connection. So
Yeah.
or he's one
Vincent
of the,
knows everybody because he's all about connections.
well, that's how you can build a membership about memberships with 150 members at whatever amount of money per month, and then
Yeah.
have the ability to grow it. So
Oh yeah.
uh
And are you going to be at the unconference next year? Hopefully.
it's one of the limiting things about being a teacher is you really have to pick when you're going to miss school for things like that.
Yeah.
I would say that if that's a decision that I'm able to make 2 or 3 months out, it's possible. If it's not a decision I can make that short term, then it's probably unlikely, because
Yep.
right now I don't have a developed enough niche that's seeing any return to where I could really justify the cost, and I don't think I could justify doing that to go find my niche. That's like going to college to
Yeah.
find yourself. There's no ROI on that anymore. Um, I think if it were during a time when I'm not working, it would be better, but those times are more expensive, and who the hell wants to go to Florida in July?
Oh man,
So,
yeah, I
but
get close enough where I live.
but shout out to Vince. Maybe if he wants to have it in Chicago in July, I'd help get that going. So just
Yeah.
just saying, I'm putting that just like Trump with the third term. I'm putting that seed out there and seeing if it catches. All right.
The unconference Midwest edition.
Yeah, why not? I mean, good luck finding a place to do it for a good price, and my house is too small, but hey, we could try.
Yeah, yeah, we do it. We do it. Well, thanks for being with me, man. And I'll put all the links and everything to all your streams right in the show notes, and of course links to your resources too. Because I want to check out this Pursue God. Always love looking at new things with that kind of stuff.
Sounds good.
Hey guys, Dr. Dave here. Some more magazines I've been reading. I came up with some more really neat ideas, and so I wanted to pass these on. And so I was reading the latest issue of Successful Farming. It looks kind of thin. That's because I ripped it apart. Only kept the part that I needed. But the latest issue of Successful Farming, and the cover story is about solar panels, solar farms, things like that out in the countryside. And there's a lot of people for it, a lot of people against it. And people on both sides. You got a lot of farmers that realize the money they can make from hosting solar farms on their property. And you've got a lot of people that are thinking, why are we getting rid of all this farmable land for solar? Poor returns, very expensive, and we're losing food land. And so there's a really neat business idea that I got out of this. So let me tell you just a tiny bit about this, and then I'm going to tell you my cool business idea. And so basically, it goes both ways, but here's the big business opportunity I see in this. I mean, of course, if you have a big piece of land, you could rent it out to somebody that's going to do solar farming on there. And basically, they're going to, well, here's an illustration. If you're watching this on YouTube, an illustration of what it looks like. It's basically they will cut everything out, and it looks like a regular field planted with solar panels. They're quite ugly. I've heard pros and cons as to whether they're worth it, but for the farmers, they make a little bit of money off of property they might not be able to farm. It might not be good for what they're trying to grow, that kind of thing. But here's where the money is there. I'm not sure how much money is in this part of it, but if you're going to do this, or you know somebody that is doing this, the business opportunity, number one, is in doing agriculture, farming, animals, crops, whatever that can work in conjunction with the solar panels. There's a picture. Let me find it. Oh yeah, here it is in the article. If you're watching this on YouTube, there it is. you can see the solar farm and a herd of sheep. And so, generally, from what I could read in this one article, I didn't research it heavily, but from what I read, sheep are really awesome for using them around solar panels because they're small. Even if they bump into the solar panels, well, the solar panels are over their head. It's just the stand. But even if the sheep bump into the stand for the panels, that kind of thing, they're not going to damage them. And the grass that's growing there, nobody has to cut it, nobody has to mow it, nobody has to do anything with it. The sheep are eating it, everybody's happy. Another thing I've heard of people doing is shade tolerant crops. I even saw one person reference broccoli. There are certain crops that can be grown around solar panels. Yes, half the day they're a lot of shade, the other half not. And so you got to pick the right kind of crop. And it's a little harder to harvest it, but you can do two things in conjunction with one another. So here's what I think. As a farmer, if you're going to do this and rent it out, maybe lease that land, a sublease on the land to a sheep herder. Let them run their sheep. You're making double payments on the property. You're getting the lease from the solar folks, and you're also getting the lease from the sheep herder. And so you're making double. You could plant some of your own crops, maybe start something new, something like that, that can grow around the solar panels. And that way, you're not only making the money from the solar folks, but you're also making some money off of that crop as well. Now, here's the third business opportunity where you're not going to have to own land, you're not going to have to own a farm, you're not going to have to really get into anything physical. And this was something I thought of that came off of some of the ideas from the article. Is one of the people that was interviewed, they said, why are we converting farmland to solar farmland when we have all these buildings all over the world and we're not putting solar panels on top of those buildings? I'm talking malls, hospitals, colleges, just regular little shopping centers. I mean, your local Walmart. Why isn't somebody out there being the middleman to sign these contracts between, let's just take a Walmart store. I don't know what the square footage on a Walmart store is, but it's pretty big. And so let's just take the square footage on a Walmart store. And some guy, it could be you, could walk in, talk to Walmart. I mean, imagine if you got a national contract. But let's just say you're talking to one store. Talk to Walmart. You say, hey, I would like to sublease the top of your building for solar panels. Then you go to the electric provider or whoever's buying the solar power. You talk to them and say, I have a beautiful piece of property for you. There's nothing on it. You don't have to worry about people bothering it. You don't have to worry about farmers mowing cows, anything like that. It's already hot up there. It's already facing the sun. You can put your panels in any direction you want. Nobody's going to fuss about seeing the panels, anything like that. Would you like to sign this contract? And so you could be the middleman and make money both ways. And so that's my really neat business idea for you based on that article is find a way to sell contracts to put solar panels on top of commercial buildings. There you go. All right. So the next article, this one is from Pool and Spa News. And let's see, we're looking at, the SWIM Act has been reintroduced in Congress. So H.R. 1506, called the Safe Water, SWIM, Safe Water Instruction for Minors Act, proposes that basic swim lessons become classified as a qualified expense for using funds from health savings accounts and flexible savings accounts. In other words, this is a really neat bill that would expand, it would move swim instruction for minors under the allowable things for HSAs and FSAs. I think this is pretty cool because parents could use pre-tax dollars for swim instruction, that's not plural, just swim instruction for their kids. I think this is pretty awesome. Versions of this act have popped up from time to time. I think Florida, I don't know if it went through, but Florida was trying to push it through where swim lessons would be a required class in elementary school for all kids. I think that's pretty cool. It's way more useful than some of the other things they teach in public school because this one would actually keep people alive, and you don't ever have to ask when you're taking a swim lesson is, when would I use this in real life? And so I think that's pretty cool. But this is also pretty neat because it lets people use some of their savings and pre-tax dollars for swim lessons. I like it. So here's, and you might be asking, I mean, that's a pretty cool tip if you're a parent, that kind of thing. But what does that have to do with streams of income? Well, guess what? If you all of a sudden have a lot of new parents that have all this money available for swim lessons that they didn't have available before, you could be a swim instructor. Now, there are some really good franchises out there. I got a buddy named Rich Potter in my Streams of Income Facebook group. Matter of fact, if you're not a member of that group, send me a message or something, or just Google Rich Potter franchise. The dude sells franchises. He is a pro and expert guru on franchises. His name is Rich Potter. He's told me point blank before he's got some swim instruction franchises. So get in touch with him. If you don't want to do the franchise route, which is pretty cool, you could always try doing it on your own. But the thing is, you could market to families that have HSAs and FSAs and just try to snap in some of those dollars for your swim instruction. And let's be honest, as long as you could manage the insurance side of things, the liability, that kind of thing, you could do this in your backyard if you've got a swimming pool. I mean, I wouldn't say, do it if you've got a little redneck 3-foot swimming pool like the one I used to have up in my front yard. But if you've got a nice in-ground swimming pool, or at least a big above-ground swimming pool, big enough for swim lessons, you could do this at your house. I've also heard of other people doing contracts with hotels. Hotels, a lot of hotels have pools, and they are very seldom used during the day. Most of it is at night when people are coming back after dinner, that kind of thing. Unless you're in a tourist area or it's a really fancy swimming pool, most of those pools are completely empty during the day, and I have seen people contract those out. They'll get with the manager of the hotel and say, hey, how much for me to rent your pool from 1 to 3 days a week? So it's a really neat win-win for both of you. So there's that business opportunity. And then the last one, this is also from Pool and Spa News. And so this one's about the construction trades. I talk often about the construction trades because that is my background. I grew up in third generation remodeling company. My dad still runs that company, and one of my sons works for him. One of my other kids is in welding school right now. Love the construction trades as an avenue to wealth, or at least just a good job, a good income with a very low threshold as far as breaking into it and getting the knowledge you need. All right, so a survey from Thumbtack, some of y'all might be on Thumbtack offering your services, reports that Gen Z is increasingly interested in the skilled trades, with TikTok and Instagram driving growth. So in other words, a lot of young people out there are seeing videos, fun just reels and images and things on Instagram and TikTok, and it's getting them interested in the trades. One thing I've noticed is that a lot more women, young ladies, are interested in the trades. My son had a conversation with some parents from my other son's football team. I've got a lot of kids, 5 of them. All right, so my 17-year-old son was talking to the parents of a kid from my 14-year-old son's football team, and their 16-year-old daughter just dual enrolled in welding school. So she is still in high school. Very good softball player, by the way. She's still in high school, and she just enrolled at the local technical college to start taking welding classes. So in other words, by the time she graduates high school, she will not only have her high school diploma and possibly some scholarship offers for softball, but she will also have an associate's degree in welding technology. And I think that is pretty awesome. I love that young people are getting interested, because there's an entire generation of people, my generation, an entire generation that I didn't, because I was involved in it, but that treated construction work as if it was, as if anything blue collar was just low tier. For years and years and years, when I was growing up, they treated blue collar as if it was less than, as if it was nothing but the poor folk who couldn't go to college or get a better job. And there are a lot of those blue collar folks that are retiring very happy these days, and possibly retiring with more money than some of those college folks who paid back student loans for decades. And so I am so glad to see that the next generation under me, my kids, and all those other kids in the current generation, getting interested in trades. We can blame Mike Rowe, I say blame in a good way, for a lot of that. He's put a lot of that out there, gotten a lot of people interested in how much money and how much fun the trades can be. And so if you have young people or know some young people in your life, try to get them interested in that. It is, like I said before, it's a low barrier entry to most trades. Not much college education, usually at the local tech college. And a lot of it, like here in South Carolina, my son is going to welding school for free. Didn't pay a dime. Equipment and everything provided for him. Went to welding school. He's actually, I think he's got 2 more days left right now. They just got through for the graduation project. From the ground up, they fabricated a trailer to carry cars on. And so it's been pretty cool. He's shown us lots of pictures, that kind of thing. And so it's really fun. But the trades are a great avenue for any young people that you know. All right, y'all. Thanks for tuning in. If you're interested in more information like this, more stuff like this, let me know. I'll be more than happy to start skewing more of what I report on towards what you're interested in. So you just, hey guys, I wanted to tell you one more thing before I wrap up this podcast. I just finished reading a book called Beyond the Hammer by Brian Gottlieb. Now, I pre-ordered this thing, an advanced copy, after I saw it mentioned in a remodeling magazine. As you know well from previous podcasts, and if you know me pretty close, I grew up in a family remodeling business. And this book just sounded incredibly interesting because the first half of the book is a business fable. I love books like this, like Who Moved My Cheese, The Goal. What's the book on? Well, there's a book about selling businesses. I can't recall right now. It's on the shelf back there. But this one, it starts out as a fable. So it's a fictional story that teaches a lesson. And the story is amazing. And so I just finished reading this. There's a tons of notes and stuff and underlined passages from me. And so, it's not like this thing has a lot of resale value on Amazon or anything like that. But here's the thing. I wanted to give it away to one of you. And so here's the catch. You've got to email me. My email is always in the show notes. And so email me, and I want you to tell me why I should send you this book. And so the best answer, I'm going to mail this thing out. And so, give me your address and everything too. But primarily, I'm looking, I get a little choked up there. And my coffee is upstairs. My energy drink is way over there. They're all out of reach. But tell me, why you deserve the book, but mainly construction industry stuff. And so I'm looking for some smaller construction folks, maybe a family business, especially, hey, maybe somebody like me where you're a second generation person and maybe you're thinking about taking over your father's business or something like that. That's not what I'm doing, but I'm, second generation construction. And so, let me know why you deserve the book and what you're doing, what you hope to accomplish with it, because it's an amazing book. I'll just read you the blurb here. A fresh approach to leadership, culture, and building high-performance teams. And I'll be honest with you, every small construction business could profit immensely off of this book. So let me know.